guys, welcome back to Ethereal Art Studio. Today we're going to be painting to the Batman. My name is Juan Scribe, and remember, here I'm an artist, you're an artist, we are all artists.
Let's get started with a little bit of red. So I'm going to use a 3/4 flat brush, but whatever you might have that's around that size, loosen it up a little bit with a little bit of water, which you bring to the paint to loosen up that paint as well. Then start to apply it to the canvas. So I'm going to leave some space towards the center for the bat signal. And this part is pretty simple. We're simply moving around the canvas, back and forth motions to apply this red paint that is making up that dark crimson Gotham sky. The Batman by Matt Reeves uses a lot of red in its trailer and in its promotion, so we're going for a nice crimson red to capture the feel and the mood of this particular Batman film. Okay, so once you leave an area there for the bat signal, let's use more water. We're gonna use water to make the red lighter. This is as opposed to using white, which will make it pink. So we use water instead. As you can see, it lightens it up a little bit. Make sure that it's not dripping. You don't want to put that much that it starts dripping. But it does lighten it up, and as it dries more, you'll see how it is truly lighter. Do it again, get more water, and make an even more translucent red, as you can see here, as you progress inwardly. Alright, so now what we're going to do is we're going to pretty much wash the brush. Then we're going to dry it a little bit with a paper towel so that it doesn't drip. And then we use that semi-dry brush to blend what we have going on over here. The more you go over it, the more it will blend. Make that sky with the light hitting it look cloudy, look striking, more eye-catching. You could also move around it a little bit, the other areas. Here I'm going to add more red to the most outer areas to make them darker and bolder, as I pretty much always say in every paint video. Adding more than one coat of paint to a certain area will make it richer, darker, and pretty much just improve the overall quality. Now I want to make sure that I ask anyone who has not subscribed to our channel yet, make sure you do so now, or at least when the video finishes. Believe me guys, you don't want to miss our upcoming tutorials and our time lapses, and you also want to make sure that you watch the ones that we have already created. We have great tutorials and time lapses on films like John Carpenter's The Thing, Alien, The Blob, Jaws, Hellraiser, and a lot of other films. So make sure you stay connected and leave a comment, subscribe to our channel, and hit that notification button. Now let's make a darker red, a maroon type red. So let's take a little bit of black, and then we mix it with some red. But let's go darker than this. Let's get a little bit darker. We want the area around, in the night sky to get darker and darker as it goes closer to the edges. So you see how this is darker right here. And I'm using the same brush. You don't necessarily have to wash it because it has the similar colors already on it. And then you just start adding all this cloudiness that's dark, the dark night around that light. So I want you to notice how, it's not like a perfect coat of evenly applied paint. There's all sorts of blotches, and it was supposed to look cloudy. It's supposed to look like it's uneven, like there's movement, right? It's clouds that are moving. So, the fact that it's a wet on wet technique, that's perfect because it allows this cloudy effect to show up instead of it being like a flat finish, one color, like a floor or a wall. This is instead a misty or a foggy sky. So now let's take some white and add a little bit extra glare here and there by just dabbing it on to this oval where the bat signal is going to be. I'm using a number 12 flat brush, which is a relatively medium or small to medium sized brush. Alright, so now let's add some black paint. We don't have to add red to it or anything. We can just take black paint, and I'm going back to my larger brush, which is my 3/4 flat, and I'm just starting to add black paint, and it's going to start blending with the red that's already there as I progress. Now I won't reach all the way to where the white area is. I'm going to stop about right here and then go to the other side to continue to release this black paint that's on my brush, and it's going to continue to blend and create the same cloudy effect. I finally add a little bit more here so that I can continue to add, these shadows that are in the clouds. Okay guys, so you've painted this far with me, so let's keep going. Let's take a little bit of red or some red, and then some black paint, and also some white to create what I could only describe as a dark purplish gray color, which then we're going to use to start painting the buildings in this Gotham City backdrop. So we're going to go for the buildings that are farthest away first, that appear the farthest. So as you can see, we use the brush. This is a number 12 flat brush. Once again, I use the angle of the brush, the shape of the brush, to try to make the angles of the building. And at first the building won't have, these buildings that we're going to paint won't have any features, but then we'll start adding them some features to make them, more unique and lifelike. For example, this one over here, we're gonna make at a slight angle. And then this one is gonna be wider. It's gonna be a bigger building. So now once we establish, the basic body of the buildings, we can then start to add some features. So here, for example, this one can be a little bit more like a Empire State Building type building, where there's tiers on top, right? There's several different sections that appear, maybe a spire. But make the buildings your own, make them unique, put your own ideas in there. Here I'm simply adding some black paint to the sky just to make it all the more interesting, more startling. Okay, so now onto a new row of buildings. So this time we mix some red and black, no white this time. We're gonna go for a very dark red, and we're gonna use this to add a new row of buildings. These buildings are slightly closer to us, so they have a different shade, and they can totally cover over the other ones, overlap. We start off by making the basic shape once again, and we'll add features later. So I'm gonna add a dome top to this building right here. So here I'm going to add a couple of spires or antennas or lightning rods, whatever features you might want to add to your buildings. They're totally, yours. You can make them your own in any way. Before we then move on to black paint by itself, no red, to make the building that is the closest to us, the one that Batman is standing on. We make a basic rectangle shape here before we then can add a ledge, or if you want to, you can make a gargoyle, whatever you want. And then we're gonna now use a small brush. Here I have a very small brush. This is a detail brush, and I'm gonna add windows with white paint that has water in it to make it softer, to make it translucent, so it's not so bright that the windows are unrealistic and just too bright. They appear controlled, right? Because they're far away. They don't have the same effect as if they were close. These ones that are closest to us or closer are stronger. Okay, so after we finish painting all these windows that we want, let's let our paintings dry for a good 5 to 10 minutes and take a look at some of the other step-by-step videos that we have in our playlist tutorials. Before we then mix some red, a little bit of black, and water, a couple of drops, as you can see here, to create a translucent dark red, to create and add some smog, some haze to Gotham City, to these buildings right here. As you can see here, you spread it throughout, and it will create a cool effect that we will do multiple times, as you will see. And I'm using the big brush so that I can spread this pollution all throughout these buildings and this downtown Gotham. So now we're going to move on to the man himself. So I have a number 4 brush. It's small. I have black paint. I'm going to start with the head, and I'm going to make the stick figure outline or stick figure of Batman. I want you to follow along, make all the marks that I make. Here I made his shoulders and his arms. Feel free, of course, to pause the video at any time as I add his torso and his legs, and start adding more and more of his body. It's starting to bulk up a little bit. And what we have to do is simply just take our time. Here I'm adding more to his back, into his calves and his hams. And I'm not adding too much paint all at once. I want to make sure that it's controlled, that it's only a little bit of paint at a time. So now I'm going to start to show more definition. So here, for example, his shoulders have become more defined, right? and you're gonna start seeing more and more features and little details that show that it's Robert Pattinson Batman. It's not just any Batman. It's the new Batman. I'm gonna add more to his shoulders here, make them a little bit more square. And what the key is, or the trick, is just to take time, not to rush. Here I'm adding his utility belt that is showing, but this is a silhouette, so obviously you can't see all the details, you just see the outlines. Now I'm going to add his bat ears, one at a time. Obviously it comes up from the head, very small. I want to make them very small at first. Now this shoulder is going to stretch out into a cape, as you'll see. It's going to be a cape that flows out into the air. And then you fill it in so that it can be solid, and it's going to be great against that bright red background. Okay, so let's take a break from Batman for a second, and let's add more haze or smog to Gotham City with the same red that has a little bit of black and some water. We add more and more haze now that the previous addition of haze and smog that we added, has dried up. Back to the bat. So I'm gonna make his shoulders more pronounced. He also has this collar on his bat suit, and I'm gonna make more and more features, and I'm gonna add more to him also to make him bigger. So we are totally getting there. We're almost there. So remember that dark purplish gray that we made for that first row of buildings? We're gonna use something just like that, or make something just like that. If you still have it, you can add a little bit of water to it. You want it to be very translucent and soft, because we're gonna use that to paint the bat signal into the clouds. I have my number 4 brush, once again, it's very small, and we're gonna go ahead and try to paint the new bat signal from Matt Reeves' Batman, from on Robert Pattinson's armor. It's right there. It has a different look than some of the previous ones. So we're gonna try to emulate that. I know right now it looks like a couple of eyebrows, right? Like Michael Keaton's eyebrows maybe. But we're gonna try to make a good representation of that new bat symbol and bat signal. once we have something that we're comfortable with, we go ahead and wipe off the paint with a paper towel so that the brush is now semi-dry, and we use that to blur the sides or the outline of this bat symbol to make it more cloudy. I couldn't help it, I added the 2 bat ears to my symbol. Now I'm going to go for a translucent white, very weak, very translucent, but not dripping. You have to control it, so you wipe it off if you can, some of it on the plate. And then you add the beams of light from the ground to the bat signal, or from the bat signal to the ground. So now go back to your painting and take time to touch up anything that you need to touch up. Add more to any part that you need to add. I'm going to work a little bit here on Batman himself. But yes, if you need to add a second layer of paint to any color, or here I'm making his ears a little bit smaller by adding the background color, which is red. So anything to make your painting, perfect. Making details to his boots. And then you can sign or initial your beautiful painting that you worked so hard on. So to those who painted with us, we would love to see how your paintings came out. And those who just watched for fun, well, thank you so much. Also, make sure you check out all of our other videos and check out etherealartsstudio.com.